Yeah, thanks, Yves. That was really interesting. So I just wanted to pick up on what you were saying there about the interest that executives in Hollywood are feeling about AI with regards to the production process. Nadira, you're very involved in that with script analysis tools, amongst other things. Can you talk us through what developments you're seeing and how your company is developing AI tools for in that area?
Mm-hmm. Well, our focus is AI-driven script analysis. And first of all, I think I have to go back to what Yves was saying earlier. We're not there yet, and there's still a lot of work, and it's not the golden age yet. But I think sometimes I think done is better than perfect, and any progress that we're making is good progress. And with regards to AI-driven script analysis, for example, you have, for example, a company that has hundreds or thousands of scripts on a yearly basis. Obviously, they have a team or they have interns reading them, making or writing coverage on a certain project, and it's not scalable. That's one case where AI is tremendously helpful because it's automated, scalable, and it's very efficient. So if you can have a use case like that where AI actually just kind of processes all of the incoming scripts, and gives you a very sophisticated output, that's one thing that I see in companies. They think about efficiency. They also think about how can they combine AI analysis versus human coverage, because an assessment done by a computer is completely different than assessment done by a human being. So I think that's one of the use cases that is interesting to companies in this space, but also the validation, which I see more probably with distributors and sales agents, because up until today, sales agents and distributors were making use, or probably are still making use of old-fashioned ways of decision making. And if they can have an objective tool that kind of guides them towards, with which territories will do well, what kind of forecasts are they seeing in specific territories, in specific countries, that can actually help them make the right decisions, see whether they are ready or willing to pay certain MGEs, whether they're ready to pay certain distribution fees. So all of that is also a very interesting use case for that specific group. And I think lastly, we should not forget about just the random Jane and John Doe, like independent producers, filmmakers, film students, amateur writers. This is a group that is always passed by because they're probably regarded as less interesting because, they're just a one-man show and tend not to have a lot of funding. But this is a group that comes to us for help as well, which was to me very surprising, because initially I thought that, the bigger companies like studios and talent agencies and large production companies would be, early adopters, and they would be the ones really, jumping on this AI bandwagon. But I see that this large group from just regular people trying to make content, trying to write good scripts and getting a foot in the door are actually becoming one of the largest groups using technology, using AI, and they make up a large portion of our users.
That's fascinating. I want to pick up on that in a moment, actually. But let me just turn to Sri. And can you tell us, Sri, a little bit about how AI with regards to Sensei, I guess, is being used within the post-production process, perhaps to help editors and graders and other creatives do their job?
Absolutely, yeah. So I do share the optimism with Nadira here. I think AI can play. And when I say AI, I'm using it as a broader definition to Yves' point, right? Like it's AI, ML, and all of the productivity that machine learning and all these workflow automations kind of bring to the post-production process. I think it can actually save, one of the research that we had was about 30% of an editor's time is spent in non-creative work today, right? So think about things like organizing shots or captioning or translating the same content in 30 different languages, or auto framing the same content to be published across various social media channels. Like, these things are not a part of the creative workflow, if you will. So minimizing the time that you spend here helps the creatives and the post-production professionals keep their focus on the creative process, right? And they still meet the deadlines. It's a very high pressure job, and in some ways, they could actually exceed their clients' expectations, right? So a few examples of things that I've personally been championing and we have pushed, I would say, over the past year or so. Again, talking about the scripting process, speech to text is a great example in Premiere Pro. So if you think about it, it's a feature that has auto captions, and that can translate in about, maybe about 20, 30 languages when it goes GA. But the use cases are infinite. Again, back to Nadira's point, you can think about auto scripting. You can think about so many other use cases when this technology kind of flourishes, right? Scene edit detection is another example. Roto brush in After Effects, content aware fill again in After Effects. Color is again a very fascinating area. Personally, I feel that if you think about the color journey so far in the production process, it's not something that has had a huge equity. Because a lot of color palettes, even today, I think, cater to the white tones. They don't cater to the global tones that we have available. But I think AI can kind of bring that level playing field if you apply the knowledge and data sets that you have across the globe. So Lumetri Color Match Panel is, again, a great example. It's also important to call out that all these technologies in themselves can take you to the 80th or 90th percentile, but still puts the creative in charge, right? Again, to go back to the color example, the colorist can still take over the workflow and give it their creative touch. It's not to say that the AI is going to take over the entire process, but it helps them get pretty far along the process, right? Auto ducking is one of my favorite features. When I watch a lot of TV, I'm still surprised when the dialogues are not audible, and the background music or the sound effects just take over. And this is, again, a ripe area where AI can just auto duck and ensure that the final creative content kind of matches the user's expectations, right? So I think there are a lot of possibilities, and we have made a lot of strides in this area.
Thank you, Sri. So Roy, do you go along with what Sri has said there about AI being able to give a boost to the production process, and then creatives can come in on top of that and give that 10% of their own creativity to it? To what extent can AI be the creative muse to really enhance and develop the content?
I'll address those two questions just separately, the muse secondarily, and then first on the acceleration. So I do agree with Sri about the potential here to kind of take laborious, time-consuming tasks and simplify them, or get an artist to the almost complete part. Obviously, those last 30%, 20%, we could put any number on it. Those polishing passes are the ones that actually consume possibly the most time. So getting to that point as soon as possible is critical. And in certain workflows, depending on what the task is you're doing, we can pick on rotomation just as an example. In that process, getting to a point with a single plate, one frame is one thing, but then having to do that on subsequent frames from scratch every single time can be extremely fatiguing. So this is a good application for machine learning, for training a machine, to do a specific kind of task and then execute that task to a best fit in order to be able to get it so that the artist can pick that up and then take it that final stretch. So I do think, as an assistive tool, machine learning trained algorithms and other tooling in and around the AI spectrum can be something that's going to help creatives stay creative and avoid spending billable hours just doing tasks that either they consider boring or mundane, or tasks that are focused in and around non-artistic pursuit, right? So they have more opportunity to be creative. On the muse side, This is the part that I think is really exciting. In most of the broken models and research that I see lots of opportunities for engagement and creating variance. A failure with a machine trained solution, like let's say, for example, texture generation. This can actually be quite a positive thing. Like if you have a standard stock texture and you need to be able to augment this in some way and you want to get as many variants as possible, throwing it into a machine and changing some parameters around is kind of a cool way of getting that from a static asset. Obviously, if you have a procedural workflow, this isn't a problem that you have, but for those times where you have maybe photography-based texture assets, this is something that can be really, really useful or informative. And then if we think about the animation side, getting character work done, being able to have a static asset and, use some performance capture, some other typically noisy or messy data as an input for an example, and then use the machine to create some variations or variants that might be something that could inspire a direction or an action. Again, like that palette of potential options, it's almost like AI becomes your little production assistant that works with you and kind of throws lots of ideas around with you and lets you, again, kind of drive towards that final creative intent or goal.
Little friendly AIs. It's a nice friendly idea. But so you're talking there about developments on the way to creating AI, helping the creator create, perhaps even creating its own IP. And Nadira, you mentioned that you were developing towards the AI could create its own content. Could you elaborate a bit on that? And if everyone else can also talk to that point about AI creating its own IP, is that something desirable, something possible? Where are we on that pathway?
Well, first of all, when we were building our first platform, the AI driven script analysis platform, our focus was on analyze and predict. But I think probably in the second year that ScriptBook's existence, we kind of knew that within the next years, probably the industry would move to maybe AI engineered content. So that's where Deep Story came about. We thought, let's see if we could actually train a generative model and kind of feed it some parameters that we have, features that we have from our first platform, and see what it will do for us. To be honest, when we started working on it, we thought it would be fun. We didn't see it as potentially becoming a product that people will use. But also when I spoke to companies or just to people about having an AI driven script engine, most people just kind of gave me the look about, this is weird, I don't think this is going anywhere. And for me, it was just seeing, is there a group of people that would be interested in using this? So we launched our beta version of this AI driven generator or engine, as you want to call it, to see how people would interact. Who are the users? Why are they using this? And is it true, like when you hear companies that writers are very protective of their art and they're easily offended if you bring in certain enhancers of creativity? Let's see if that's the case. Now, when we launched this beta version of the engine, very basic interface, you just literally go on to and you start generating your scene header. You have it understands structure, so it will automatically generate scripted content according, let's say, the Final Draft software. Let's see what people, if people are going to use this, and what's the feedback? How do they feel about it? In January, we started off with 200 users a month. So I thought, okay, that's not huge. Maybe, there isn't really interest. But today we have 15,000 users a month. So it's growing tremendously. And the feedback that we're getting and the insight that we're getting from the users is that they're just regular people dreaming of writing, not necessarily having experience or the right studies, but they want to write their own stories. So all of these users, we're not using any marketing, we're not promoting this in any way because it's still beta and we're trying to figure out, where to go with such an engine. All of the traffic, all of these 15,000 users, current users, they find us organically. The most hyped word is AI engine, AI storytelling engine, and they end up on Deep Story. They use it for generation because they just want to become creators. They want some sort of a tool that will help them become better in this kind of art. And also, I will kind of make the link towards, IP and whether this engine is able of creating its full story, of course. But you have to make a nuance. AI-generated content is not human-generated content. I always think of humans as the editors of the story. So if you generate AI-driven story, you need humans to make it kind of human, better edited, maybe, change certain arcs. But the AI can, of course, generate a full story. Will the story make sense? Perhaps, perhaps not. Will it be entertaining? Most likely. Now, the mindset that needs to change in the next coming years is that will the industry accept AI-driven content? Will the industry be open to actually making content that was completely generated by an AI? And looking at today's audiences, if people can watch for hours dance videos and stupid life hacks on certain platforms, it shows you that today's audiences, they're younger, they're the millennials and the generation that comes after the millennials. Probably they won't be as let's say the stricter audience that we're used to, the traditional audiences that like long form storytelling with a purpose and they need to get a catharsis out of the story. No, probably these audiences will find this enjoyable. And also one last thing is about generated content. This is something that I struggle with because we log the percentage of AI generated content versus the human input. And we see it tends to go towards 70-30, 70 AI generated, 30 human. And of course, we get also the feedback that the users using this software are telling us, can we get rid of the watermark with deepstory.ai because they want to pass it on as their own. So the question right there is, how about legislation? I mean, how do we move forward by telling this story was created by a human and an AI? The percentage of AI was 70%, presented by a human 30%. How do you share that ownership? All of these questions pop up, but we don't have an answer today. Because I don't have them, and whenever I ask around, it seems that other people don't have them as well. So I think that will be the challenge for the coming years.